$40. That's what a single bag of top dressing sand costs you, and most homeowners burn through 6 of them before they ever fix the real problem underneath. Picture it. It's a warm Saturday morning, the dew is still on the grass, and you walk out barefoot with your coffee to enjoy the lawn you've been babying all year. Then your ankle rolls into a dip you didn't see, the coffee jumps out of the mug, and you realize this beautiful green carpet is a minefield of bumps and hollows. And here's the part nobody at the big box garden counter will tell you. That smiling associate who sold you the bag of sand and the little spreader is not lying to you on purpose. He just doesn't know what's actually causing those bumps, and the bag's label is written to sell sand, not to fix your ground. So you live with it. Every spring it's the same. You mow, and the mower scalps the high spots down to brown dirt while it skips clean over the low spots, leaving them shaggy. You twist your ankle in the same hollow by the gate. You tell yourself this is the year you finally get it flat, and by July it looks exactly like it did last July. That cycle, that quiet annual defeat, is the thing we're killing today. Here's the truth most people never hear. Most folks try to fix a bumpy lawn by dumping sand on top and dragging it around, but actually that fixes the symptom for about 8 weeks, and then the bumps push right back up through it. They rent a heavy roller and flatten everything like a parking lot, which feels productive and does almost nothing. They add more soil to the low spots and never touch the high spots, so the lawn just gets taller and lumpier. And nothing changes year after year because the cause was never on the surface. So here's what I'm going to walk you through. 2 completely different reasons your lawn went bumpy, because they are not the same problem and they do not get the same fix. The first is the soft, settling, sinking kind of bump that comes from what's rotting and shifting beneath your feet. The second is the hard, heaving, rising kind of bump that comes from how the ground itself moves with the seasons. And then, at the very end, there's a third thing. One single practice the old Amish gardeners used that means they almost never had to level a lawn twice in their lives. That practice is the entire reason I'm making this video, and I'm going to make you wait for it, because once you understand the first 2 problems, the third one will finally make sense. So let me ask you something first, and just sit with it. What if the bumps in your lawn aren't damaged at all, but your lawn doing exactly what the ground told it to do? Let me start with part 1, the sinking, settling, soft kind of bumpiness, because this is the version that breaks the most hearts, and it's the most common by a wide margin. This matters first because it's the kind that gets worse the more you mow, and most people are accidentally feeding it. Here's what you instinctively do. You feel a soft spot, your foot sinks a little, and you think the lawn needs building up, so you add topsoil or sand to raise it. It feels logical. It feels like you're filling a hole. But here's what's actually happening beneath your feet. That soft, sinking spot is almost always organic matter breaking down underground. Old tree roots, a buried stump, construction debris, a layer of thatch that got too thick, or the spongy remains of whatever was tilled into that ground years ago. As that material rots, it loses volume. A buried root the size of your arm can collapse into a hollow you could lose a tennis ball in, and the microbes doing that rotting work consume the material at a steady rate, so the ground keeps dropping for 2 to 3 years after the rot starts. When you pour sand on top, you add weight, the rotting continues underneath, and the whole pile sinks together. You didn't fix it. You just made a heavier thing that's still falling. So here's the reframe. You are not filling a hole. You are chasing a hole that is still being dug from below. And you will never win by adding to the top while the bottom keeps eating itself. Now let me give you the correct method, simplest first. If the hollow is shallow, less than 2 centimeters deep, the easiest fix on earth is top dressing done properly. You make a mix that is roughly 70% sharp sand and 30% screened compost, and you apply it in a layer no thicker than 1 centimeter at a time. 1 centimeter, not more. The reason for that exact number is simple. Your grass blades need to keep their growing tips above the surface to keep photosynthesizing, and if you bury them deeper than about 1 centimeter, you suffocate the crown and the grass yellows and dies under your repair. So you spread that thin centimeter, you drag it level with the back of a rake or a flatboard, and you let the grass grow up through it for 2 to 3 weeks. Then you do it again. 2 or 3 light passes over a single growing season will lift a shallow hollow without ever choking the lawn. It costs you maybe $12 to $15 a bag and a couple of Saturdays, and it lasts because you fed it gradually instead of smothering it. But if that hollow is deeper, the kind where your whole boot disappears, top dressing alone is a waste of money because you'd be burying the grass alive trying to fill it in one go. For that one, you do the slightly more advanced fix, and this is the one the sand on top crowd never gets told. You cut the turf. You take a flat spade, slice a capital H into the sunken patch, and peel back the 2 flaps of living grass like opening a book. Now, the hollow is exposed. You fill it from underneath with screened topsoil, not sand, because under the surface, you want soil that holds together and feeds roots, and you tamp it firm with the back of the spade so it won't settle again. You bring it up just proud of the surrounding level, maybe half a centimeter high, because fresh soil always settles a touch. Then you fold the living turf flaps back down on top, press them in with your foot, and water deeply. Those flaps knit back into place in 10 to 14 days, and you'd never know you'd been there. This is the difference between a lawn that's flat for 2 months and a lawn that's flat for 10 years. And understand exactly what you're losing if you keep getting this wrong. You're losing the grass itself because every time you smother a soft spot under 3 centimeters of sand, that patch yellows, shrivels, and dies, and now you've got bare dirt that weeds find before your grass does. You're losing the money twice, once on the sand that sank, and again on the seed to repair the dead patch, and you're losing whole summers because each failed attempt costs you a full growing season before you find out it didn't hold. Here's your universal prevention tip for that whole first problem. Before you fill any soft spot, dig a small test plug the size of your fist right in the center of it. If you pull up dark, crumbly, rotting material or old wood, you've found a sinker, and you treat the cause first by digging the rotten material out, not by burying it. 30 seconds with a trowel saves you 2 seasons of guessing. And that single habit, the test plug, the H-cut, the fill from below is what separates a lawn that stays flat from one that keeps failing you season after season. If you want to go even deeper into the principles behind it, I want to tell you about something that will genuinely change how you see your yard. I've put together a set of guides called the Amish Lawn Guide, the Amish Soil Guide, and the Complete Amish Yard Field Edition, and they go into exactly this kind of root level thinking, the soil structure, the organic matter cycles, the practices that mean you fix things once and walk away. If that sounds like the resource you've been missing, the link is in the description, and it's all available for $97. Now, back to the second problem, because this one is technically the opposite of everything we just covered, and that's exactly why it needs its own fix. Now, quick thing, and then we go straight back in. If this is the kind of explanation nobody ever gives you in the garden aisle, the kind that tells you what's happening under the grass instead of just what to buy, do me a favor and hit subscribe. That's genuinely what every video on this channel does. One tap, and you'll stop getting sold sand and start getting answers. All right, straight back to it. Part 2 is a completely different beast, and I need you to understand it's technically the opposite of the first one, which is exactly why one bag of advice can't fix both. The first problem was ground sinking. This one is ground rising. Here's the thesis, plain and blunt. Most of the hard bumps in your lawn were never put there by anything you did. They were pushed up from below by water and clay, and you can roll them flat every weekend for the rest of your life, and they will come back every single spring. Let me name the catastrophic version so you take this seriously, because this is the one that takes months to fix if you ignore it. When you've got heavy clay, soil, and poor drainage, water gets trapped under the surface. In a cold winter, that trapped water freezes, and frozen water expands by roughly 9%, lifting the soil above it into a hump. This is frost heave, and it doesn't just bump your lawn, it can lift fence posts, crack a patio, and push stones the size of your fist up to the surface every year, which is exactly why old gardeners said the ground grows rocks. In summer, that same clay does the reverse. It dries, it shrinks, it cracks, and the surface goes lumpy and hard as a road. So you're not fighting a flat ground problem. You're fighting a ground that breathes up and down with every season, and until you change what's underneath, you are mowing a moving target. So here's how you actually beat it, cheapest and simplest first. Method 1 is core aeration, and it's the one almost nobody connects to bumpiness. You rent a core aerator, about $60 to $70 for a half day, and you pull thousands of little plugs of soil out of the ground, each one about 8 centimeters deep. Here's the mechanical reason it works. Those holes give the trapped water somewhere to drain and give the compacted clay somewhere to expand into sideways instead of upward. When water can move down through the profile instead of freezing in a flat sheet near the surface, the heaving force drops dramatically. You do this in early autumn when the soil is still warm enough for the grass to heal but cool enough that you're not stressing it, and you leave the little plugs right there on the surface to break down. One pass a year on heavy clay can cut your seasonal heaving noticeably within 2 winters. Method 2 is top dressing again, but for a completely different reason than in part 1, and this is where it gets clever. After you aerate, you brush that same sharp sand and compost mix down into the open holes. You are not filling a hollow this time. You are slowly changing the texture of the top layer of your soil. Sharp sand has angular grains that prop apart the fine clay particles, and over 3 or 4 years of doing this every autumn, you build a free-draining upper layer that simply can't hold the sheet of water that causes the heave. This is the slow, permanent fix. It costs you about $30 to $40 in materials a year, and each year the lawn moves less than the year before. Most people want one weekend and done. The truth is the clay took years to lock up, and you reverse it one autumn at a time. Method 3 is the one a professional reaches for when the heaving is severe and the lawn is genuinely unlevel across a wide area. And it's the big one, so brace yourself. You do a full lift and regrade. You strip the turf off in sections with a turf cutter. You fix the grade underneath with a proper sub-base of coarse grit and screen soil sloped to fall about 1 to 2 centimeters per meter away from the house so water actually runs off. You compact it in layers, and you either relay the turf or reseed. This is a real job, a weekend or 2 of hard graft, and on a small back garden, a landscaper would charge you several $100s to do it. But here's why it's worth naming. When the heaving has lifted your lawn into rolling waves, you can see from the kitchen window no amount of sand on top will ever catch up. You have to go down to the grade, fix the slope and the drainage at the source, and build it back. Do it once, properly, and you've solved in one weekend what top dressing would chase for 10 years. So that's your ladder. Aerate if the bumps are mild and you've got clay. Aerate and top dress every autumn if you want the slow, permanent cure. Lift and regrade if the waves are bad enough to see across the room. Each step up costs more and asks more of you, and each step lasts longer. Now, part 3, prevention. And this is the one I promised you at the very start. The thing the old Amish gardeners did that meant they almost never leveled a lawn twice. Here it is, finally. They never let the ground go to bare clay or pure organic muck in the first place. They built the soil so it couldn't heave and couldn't sink, and the single universal action behind it is this. Every autumn they top dress the whole lawn with a thin, even layer of well-rotted compost, a screened mix barely half a centimeter deep across the entire surface, not just the bad spots. Here's why that one habit defeats both problems at once. A soil rich in stable, finished organic matter holds the right amount of water and drains the rest, so it doesn't freeze into heaving sheets in winter and it doesn't collapse into rotting hollows in summer. The earthworms, it feeds tunnel constantly, and those tunnels are the finest aeration and drainage system on earth, free, working every night while you sleep. The tool is nothing more than a wheelbarrow, a shovel, and the back of a leaf rake. You spread it in early autumn, you drag it level, you water it in, and you let the worms pull it down into the soil over winter. Do that one thing every year and you will spend $0 on emergency leveling, save yourself the $60 aerator rental and roughly $100 a year in sand and seed for repairs, and never lose another summer to a lawn that fought you. So let's match it to you so you walk away knowing exactly what to do. If your lawn has soft, sinking, boot-swallowing spots, you've got the first problem. So dig your test plug, cut the H, fill from below with screened topsoil, and fold the turf back. If your lawn has hard, rolling humps that come back every spring and you can feel clay when it's wet, you've got the heaving problem. So aerate this autumn and start top dressing with sharp sand and compost. If you've got a small garden and you simply want to never deal with either one again, you do the Amish habit, 1/2 centimeter of finished compost over the whole lawn every autumn, and you let the worms do the leveling for free. Now, here's the new problem you're about to run straight into, because everyone who fixes their levels hits this next. Once your lawn is flat and you've been top dressing with all that lovely compost and sand, you're going to start seeing moss creep into the areas that stay damp and shaded, because the richer, moister soil that cures your bumps is exactly the soil moss loves. It's the price of doing this right, and it catches people completely off guard. So if you're already seeing that green velvet starting in the shady corners, do this for me. Drop a comment below and just type the word moss so I know how many of you are dealing with it, and tell me whether it's in sun or shade. I'm building the next video around exactly how to kill it for good without poisoning the lawn you just worked so hard to level, and I'll show you the cheap iron-based fix the lawn care companies charge a fortune for. Type moss in the comments, hit subscribe so it lands in front of you the day it goes live, and I'll see you in that one. But before you go, let me leave you with one more thing, because it's the detail that separates the people who fix this once from the people who keep fighting it every spring. When you spread that autumn compost, the temptation is to do it thick, to really pile it on so you only have to do it once. Don't, I want to be very clear about this. A thick layer of compost mats down, blocks air from reaching the crowns of your grass, and turns into a slimy, airless blanket that kills the very lawn you're trying to feed. 1/2 centimeter, that's the magic number, and it's not random. 1/2 centimeter is thin enough that the grass blades still poke through and keep breathing, and the worms can pull it down before it suffocates anything. If you can't see green grass tips standing up through your top dressing the day after you spread it, you've gone too thick and you need to rake some back off. That single rule has saved more lawns than any product on the shelf. And here's a timing secret the old gardeners knew that nobody talks about. Do it right after your last mow of the season, when the grass is short, because short grass lets the compost fall straight to the soil surface instead of catching on long blades and sitting up where it rots. Then water it in once, lightly, just enough to settle it into the holes and crevices. After that, walk away and let winter do the work. By the time spring comes, that layer will have vanished into the soil, your worms will have tunneled it deep, and your ground will sit flatter and firmer than it has in years. Get those two details right, the 1/2 centimeter and the short grass, and you'll never chase a bump across your lawn again. That's the whole game. Now go check your shady corners for moss, type it below, and I'll see you in the next one. You're still here, so this last part is just for you. Inside my membership, the Amish Garden Circle, I take you through the buried rot diagnosis and that permanent 2-part leveling method, picking up right where we stopped. Get stuck? Ask me your own question and I answer myself, a real person. You won't be alone, old ways gardeners like you are already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code. Cancel anytime, no risk. Now that your lawn is level, let me save you from a costly mistake. There's one thing most folks spread on top that quietly ruins all your hard work. I'll show you what to use instead, right here.